again. I think the title of this testimony would be "Fight the Fight." There's a real enemy out there that comes against every Christian. The Bible says that he comes to kill and destroy, and he will get into your head and convince you that all is lost, everything is hopeless, and that you just cannot succeed. You have no hope. You have no joy, because he's convinced you that it isn't going to work out for you. I had a job in Marion, Ohio, at the Marion Power Shovel Company. This was 40 years ago. Becky and I were dating at the time, and this company bought a CAD system, computer-aided design system. And I became pretty proficient at it, to the point where another division down the road, this is a division of Dresser, Marion Power Shovel division of Dresser, another division down the road named Gallion Manufacturing, also a division of Dresser, wanted to use me to help them decide what systems they wanted to buy. And because it was a $500,000 decision, so they wanted to make sure they had some guidance on what would work for them. So we went around to see the various vendors that had the systems purchased, and we also went to security division of Dresser here in Dallas, because they had built a homegrown system, number one. Number two, it was the corporate headquarters, which ultimately had to prove a $500,000 expenditure. So in visiting the manager of the department that had the homegrown system, he became very interested in the possibilities of getting a system himself. And so, and decided to ask me to help them go through the same evaluation when I was finished with Gallion. And that worked out pretty good for me, because after being in Chattanooga, Tennessee for a couple of years and going back to Ohio, I really couldn't wait to get back to the South. And Becky and I were planning on getting married, and that idea of a fresh start and a fresh city, and a great city, frankly, in the South, really appealed to us. And so it was well planted in our hearts that Dallas was in our future. I proceeded to convince them that they should hire me to run their system after they get it installed. And that process of hiring me began. The vice president of engineering, his name is Dr. Littman, had to interview me before they could make me an offer. And he had just had hernia surgery, and so I had to go to his house for the interview. So I went to his house, and we had dinner. I was there for 2 hours, and for an hour and 45 minutes, we talked about the Lord. I was just amazed, frankly. His background was more Presbyterian, let's say, like, than Pentecostal, but there was no doubt he had a relationship with the Lord, and we were on the same page. So the last 15 minutes we talked about my job responsibilities and the offer, and he said, "I'll have an offer letter on your desk in the morning." So went in the next day, and morning came and went, and no offer letter. So about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, he calls me, and he says, "Greg, in checking around, I've got 15 things here that I need to ask you about before we proceed with this." So I said, "Okay." And he began. The first one was from a person in the company I was going to, who built the homegrown system that was going to be replaced by the system that we were going to install. And I think his complaint was I wasn't very outgoing, and I'm sure you find that hard to believe, but that was it. And I pointed out to him to Mr. Dr. Littman, that this is a person who really doesn't want me here, doesn't want the new system here. So I think he's probably not unbiased. We went on to the next one. Well, the next one was the head of the IT department at Marion Power Shovel, who really wanted the job that I was up for. And he told Dr. Littman that if I hadn't have quit Marion Power Shovel when I did, they were going to fire me. So I pointed out to Dr. Littman that you guys are all part of the same corporation. So you have access to my personnel files, and if you look in my personnel files, you'll see that Marion Power Shovel gave me a raise after I told them I was transferring to another division. And I suppose it was already in the works, and it was easier to go ahead and let it go through. I mean, they weren't trying to convince me to stay, but they let the raise go through anyway. Not something probably you would do if you're going to fire somebody. Another lie. And I don't remember, I think we got through maybe to the fifth item, and they're mostly lies and character assassinations and whatever. And I was really kind of getting upset. Not so much at the people doing the acts, but at Dr. Littman, because we had spent a couple hours together and we're on the same page spiritually. And I was a little upset that he would believe those enough to bring them up. And so around the fifth one, I just had it, and because I just saw the enemy all over this thing, and I was surprised that he didn't, and so I finally said, besides all this, what does your father say? After those words came out of my mouth, I couldn't believe I'm asking Dr. Walt Littman, the Vice President of Engineering, what his father says. But it was an expression that we used all the time in the church that I was going to. And so it was natural for me, but I thought after I heard those words come out, I thought, he doesn't know what I'm talking about. And there was a long pause at the other end of the phone. And I finally said, well, what do you feel in your heart? And he said, well, actually, I feel pretty good about it in my heart. So I said, well, can we go with that? And that was the end of the conversation. He didn't say absolutely okay. So I didn't absolutely know where I was. But there's certain situations when, the enemy is so prevalent that if you recognize it, you know all you have to do is hang on. Hang on, and God will show up, and it'll be good. So I hung up the phone, and it almost immediately rang, and it was Becky. And she was packing to make a trip to Dallas, and I told her what happened, and she began to unpack. And I'm almost celebrating in the sense of I know that this is going to work. She's not so convinced, and so I tried to assure her that it was going to be okay. And I actually had an offer letter before the date was over, so it was all good. But the point of the story is that there's evil out there, and when you recognize it's at work, you simply have to call upon the Lord and wait upon the Lord, and everything will be okay. So, leave you with these two thoughts. God loves you more than you can imagine, more than you'll ever know on this side of heaven. And He has more for you and me. And if we'll seek Him, we'll experience it. God bless.